Have you ever stood still for a moment, maybe late at night or early in the morning, and looked at yourself, not just in the mirror, but honestly inward, and asked, why am I not where I thought I'd be by now? Have you ever wondered if you're actually moving forward, or just staying busy to avoid that question? These thoughts don't usually show up when life is loud. They appear when everything slows down, when no one's watching, when it's just you, your reflection, and the uncomfortable weight of unrealized potential. Because deep down, you know something most people try to ignore. You are capable of more. You feel it. You've always felt it. But then emotions creep in. Fear, doubt, frustration. Some days you feel unstoppable, focused, motivated, ready to change everything. And then, without warning, your own mind turns against you. You hesitate. You overthink. You choose comfort over progress, even though you promised yourself you wouldn't. And that's when it starts to feel like you're losing. Not to the world, not to other people, but to yourself. Now here's the question most people never ask. What if this struggle isn't unique to you? What if this inner conflict has been part of human nature for centuries? Long before self-help books, productivity hacks, or motivational speeches, there was someone who studied power, discipline, and human behavior at its rawest level. Not from theory, but from chaos, betrayal, and survival. Niccolo Machiavelli lived in a world where trust was dangerous and weakness was punished. And while most people only associate his name with politics, his real insight went much deeper. He understood people. He understood how emotions sabotage potential, how lack of self-control destroys strong individuals, and how self-mastery, not luck, not talent, not charm, is what separates the ordinary from the unstoppable. His ideas don't comfort you. They wake you up. They don't ask you to be emotionless. They ask you to be strong enough to not be ruled by emotion. This isn't about becoming cold. It's about becoming grounded. It's about reclaiming your focus, your discipline, and your inner fire, especially on the days when nothing feels clear and motivation disappears. So if you've ever felt like something inside you is holding you back, consider this your wake-up call. Before we begin, write this in the comments, not as a quote, but as a decision. I am in control of my emotions, and nothing can stop my rise. Now let's begin. Law number 1. Control your feelings. Do not let them control you. There will be moments in your life when everything inside you wants to react. Someone disrespects you. A plan falls apart. Fear whispers that you're not good enough. In those moments, reacting feels natural, almost automatic. But that's exactly where most people lose, not to others, but to themselves. Machiavelli understood something most never figure out. Emotions are natural, but they are not leaders. Feeling something does not mean you must act on it. Anger, fear, excitement, even hope. These emotions are part of being human. But the moment you allow them to make decisions for you, you surrender your power. You stop choosing with clarity and start reacting blindly. And over time, that makes you unpredictable, not to others, but to yourself. A person who can't control their reactions becomes someone even they can't rely on. Machiavelli once said, "He who builds on the people builds on the mud." This wasn't just about politics. It applies to anything built on unstable ground, moods, opinions, emotional impulses. If your peace depends on how others treat you or how your day unfolds, you're standing on mud. But if you learn to remain centered while life pushes against you, you become immovable. Think back to a moment when you almost reacted, said something out of anger, made a decision out of fear, but didn't. You paused. You stayed calm. And later, you were grateful. That pause was power. Emotional discipline isn't about suppressing what you feel. It's about feeling deeply while choosing wisely. The person who can experience pressure, frustration, or pain and still stay steady is already ahead of most people. So the next time emotions rise, ask yourself one question. Am I choosing this, or am I just reacting? That question alone can change the trajectory of your life. Law number 2. Accept reality brutally. Do not live in illusions. There comes a point where lying to yourself does more damage than any external obstacle ever could. We all do it in subtle ways. It'll work itself out. I still have time. Tomorrow I'll start. We cling to these thoughts because they're comfortable, because they allow us to avoid the truth staring us in the face. But comfort doesn't change anything. Truth does. Machiavelli believed that living in illusion was one of the most dangerous things a person could do. He had no patience for pretty lies or feel-good stories. He believed in clarity, even when it hurt. He once said, "The wise man does at once what the fool does finally," meaning, don't wait for life to force your hand. Wake yourself up. Most people avoid reality not because they don't see it, but because they're afraid of what it will demand. If you admit something isn't working, you'll have to change. If you acknowledge a relationship is toxic, you'll have to walk away. If you accept you've been undisciplined, you'll have to take responsibility. And responsibility is heavy. But it's also freedom. You cannot grow inside a lie. You cannot heal what you refuse to acknowledge. And you cannot move forward while waiting for perfect conditions. Life doesn't pause until you're ready. It keeps moving. And the sooner you stop sugarcoating the truth, the faster you regain control. Ask yourself honestly, what truth am I avoiding right now? Is it your habits? Your mindset? The version of yourself you've been pretending to be? You don't need to fix everything today, but you do need to face it. Machiavelli wasn't trying to make people harsh. He was trying to make them awake, to see clearly, to live with eyes open, even when what they see is uncomfortable. Because once you stop hiding from reality, you can finally build something real. No one ever changed their life by waiting for the right moment. They changed it by seeing things as they are, not as they wish they were. So ask yourself this, without flinching. Am I living in truth or hiding in hope? That answer may unsettle you, but it might also save you. Law number 3. Use strategy, not just strength. You can raise your voice. You can clench your jaw. You can tell yourself and everyone else that you're not someone to be messed with. But if there's no plan behind your actions, all of that intensity collapses the moment resistance appears. Strength might draw attention, but only strategy earns respect. And respect, once earned, opens doors that force never will. Machiavelli was never impressed by brute force. He watched rulers rise and fall, not based on how loud or aggressive they were, but on how intelligently they moved. Real power doesn't announce itself. It plans quietly, observes patiently, and acts only when the timing is right. He famously said, "It is better to be feared than loved, if you cannot be both." This line is often misunderstood. He wasn't encouraging cruelty. He was talking about presence, about how you carry yourself, about being so clear, consistent, and grounded that people think twice before crossing you, not out of terror, but out of respect for your boundaries and certainty. Too many people mistake reaction for strength. They rush to prove themselves in the moment. They argue, they defend, they try to win instantly, but proof doesn't live in reactions. It lives in results. And results come from strategy. Strategy is knowing who you are, where you're going, and which battles actually matter. It's understanding that not every challenge deserves your energy. That sometimes the smartest move is silence. Sometimes it's patience. Sometimes it's walking away without explaining yourself. Think about how many times you could have won, an opportunity, a connection, a personal goal, but you rushed. You reacted emotionally. You didn't think far enough ahead. That doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But the lesson is this: emotion-driven strength burns fast and burns out. Strategy endures. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to control people to lead. You don't need to be everywhere, doing everything. You need to be intentional. True power is the ability to think 3 steps ahead, stay grounded under pressure, and never lose sight of the bigger picture. Strategy means knowing when to speak and when to stay silent, when to push forward and when to wait, when to take a risk and when to let time do the work for you. This isn't manipulation, it's maturity. So the next time you feel the urge to force your way through a problem, pause and ask yourself, what's the smartest way forward? Not the fastest, not the loudest, but the smartest. Because strength may break walls, but strategy builds kingdoms. Law number 4, be adaptable and unpredictable. Life rarely follows your plan. Just when you think you've figured things out, something shifts. The job you relied on disappears. Someone you trusted changes. The routine that once worked suddenly feels useless. In those moments, adaptability isn't optional. It's survival. Machiavelli understood this deeply. He said, "Whoever desires constant success must change his conduct with the times." That one sentence holds more truth than most advice you'll ever hear. Because success isn't about doing the same thing harder. It's about knowing when to do something different. Discipline matters. Focus matters. But rigidity is dangerous. There is no strength in clinging to the wrong plan. No honor in holding on to a version of yourself that no longer fits the life you're living. The world doesn't reward stubbornness. It rewards responsiveness. Adaptability is growth in motion. And unpredictability makes you powerful. Because when no one can place you in a box, no challenge can defeat you the same way twice. Many of the most painful moments in life don't come from change itself. They come from resisting it. We hold on to what's familiar even when it's hurting us. We repeat behaviors that no longer serve us because at least they're known. We expect the world to adjust to us, but it never does. It's always us who must evolve. Being adaptable doesn't mean losing yourself. It means discovering new versions of yourself that were waiting to be unlocked. It means learning when to let go, when to shift direction, and when to rewrite the rules you once lived by. So ask yourself this: when life throws something unexpected at you, how do you respond? Do you freeze? Do you fight reality? Or do you adjust, observe, learn, and move forward differently? Can you look at a setback and ask, what is this teaching me? Instead of, why is this happening to me? Unpredictability isn't chaos. It's resilience. It's being unshakable. Because when life can't trap you in a single pattern, you become a force that keeps moving forward, no matter what changes around you. That's real power. Not control over everything, but mastery over how you respond. Stay flexible. Stay aware. That's how you win, not once, but again and again. Law number 5, control your image, because perception shapes reality. This one makes people uncomfortable, but it's necessary. You can work hard, you can have good intentions, you can carry real values, but if the way you present yourself doesn't reflect that, the world may never see it. People don't experience your inner world, they experience your presence. And like it or not, perception influences opportunity. Machiavelli understood this clearly when he said, "Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. That's not pessimism. That's awareness. People respond to signals, your tone, posture, consistency, and composure. These things speak long before you explain yourself, and they can open doors or quietly close them without a word being said. So ask yourself, when people interact with you, what do they feel? Do they sense calm confidence or inner chaos? Clarity or uncertainty? Grounded presence or nervous energy? This isn't about pretending. It's about alignment. It's making sure who you are internally and how you show up externally are working together. That your actions reflect the person you're becoming, not the version of you that's still doubting. Your image speaks even when you're silent. The way you enter a room, the way you hold eye contact, the way you respond under pressure, all of it sends a message. And when that message says, I'm steady, I'm focused, I know where I stand, people respond differently. Life responds differently. Your reputation can become a quiet shield. When people trust your consistency, your strength, your values, they treat you with respect, sometimes without you needing to say a word. That's the power of image. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be conscious. You don't need all the answers. You need presence. You don't need to impress, just to stand firmly in who you're becoming. Ask yourself today, what kind of energy am I bringing into the world? Because the world can only respond to what it sees. Make sure what it sees reflects your rise. Law number 6. Do not display weakness. Strength is a signal. There is a shift that happens the moment people sense uncertainty in you. They may not say anything. They may even smile. But internally, they adjust how they treat you. Because whether we like it or not, human beings are always reading signals. When you hesitate too often, when you constantly second-guess yourself out loud, when fear leaks into your tone, your posture, your decisions, something changes. Not because you lack value, but because the signal you're sending says you're unsure of it yourself. Machiavelli understood this uncomfortable truth. He observed that people don't always respond with compassion when they sense weakness. More often, they calculate, they test, they push. That's why he said something that sounds harsh but reflects reality. A wise ruler ought never to keep faith when by doing so it would be against his interests. This wasn't a call to betrayal. It was a warning about naivety. Being too open, too trusting, or too exposed in the wrong environments doesn't make you noble. It makes you vulnerable. And vulnerability, when unguarded, often comes with a cost. This doesn't mean you should become fake. It means you must become aware. Strength isn't pretending you don't feel pain. Strength is not allowing pain to collapse your posture, your presence, or your direction. It's standing steady even when something inside you wants to fold. Because strength is a signal, and the world responds to that signal. Think back to a moment when you revealed too much too soon, when you shared uncertainty with someone who hadn't earned your trust, when you failed to set a boundary because you didn't want to seem difficult. What happened afterward? Did it empower you or quietly cost you something? These experiences don't teach us to be cold. They teach us to be selective, to understand that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. People respect boundaries. They may test them, but they respect them. When you walk into a room calm and composed, when your words carry weight not because you speak often, but because you don't waste them, people feel it. You don't have to dominate. You don't have to explain yourself endlessly. You just have to be clear. Protecting your emotional energy isn't selfish. It's intelligent. You are not required to bleed in front of everyone to prove you're human. Vulnerability has a place, but only in the hands of those who've earned it. Everywhere else, let your stability speak. So ask yourself this: when pressure hits, what message are you sending? Do you shrink? Do you apologize for existing? Do you soften yourself just to keep others comfortable? Or do you remain grounded, steady, calm, unshaken? Because real strength doesn't shout. It doesn't rush. It doesn't panic. It stands. And that quiet stability sends a powerful message. I may bend, but I do not break. Law number 7. Plan for long-term success, not short-term relief. This is where most people lose, not because they're incapable, but because they're impatient. We all want results. We want proof that our effort matters. We want something to show for the discomfort we're enduring. And in that hunger, it's easy to chase what's quick, what's easy, what feels good right now. But temporary relief has a hidden cost. Machiavelli famously said, "The ends justify the means." This line is often misunderstood as a justification for manipulation. But at its core, it's about direction, about keeping your eyes on the outcome that truly changes your life, not the small wins that only soothe you in the moment. You can sacrifice discipline for comfort, or you can sacrifice comfort for a future most people never build. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they want results too fast. They plant a seed and expect fruit the next morning. When nothing appears, they assume it isn't working. But growth doesn't announce itself. It happens quietly. Long-term success begins in silence, in early mornings, in late nights, in routines that no one claps for. It requires consistency when there's no feedback and no recognition. It asks you to say no to what feels good now so you can say yes to something meaningful later. Think about the times you broke a good habit because it felt hard, or skipped a responsibility for short-term ease. How many times did that moment of relief cost you more than you realized? True strength isn't choosing the fastest path. It's trusting your process even when it feels slow. It's staying aligned when nothing seems to be moving yet. Because success isn't an event. It's a direction. It's a decision you make daily, especially on the days when motivation is gone. Machiavelli's wisdom has lasted for centuries because it reflects something timeless. Those who win in the long run think differently in the short term. They delay gratification. They build quietly. They measure progress in consistency, not excitement. When you apply these laws, something shifts. You stop reacting to life and start shaping it. You stop waiting to be saved and start becoming reliable to yourself. You become someone who doesn't need reassurance, someone who doesn't chase approval, someone who moves with purpose, even when no one is watching. Now it's your turn. Write this again in the comments, not as words, but as a commitment. I am in control of my emotions, and nothing can stop my rise. Say it like you're done being stuck. Say it like you've decided. Say it like the future is finally yours to build. Thank you for watching. If this resonated with something inside you, like and subscribe for more grounded, honest, and powerful lessons. I'll see you in the next video, where your rise continues. Now that you've heard all 7 laws, this is where most people make a mistake. They nod. They feel motivated. They tell themselves, this makes sense. And then, they return to the same patterns. Not because the ideas were wrong, but because applying them requires something far more difficult than understanding them. It requires consistency when the emotional rush fades. It requires discipline when no one is watching. And it requires honesty when your old habits start calling you back. So, let's slow this down and make it real. Because these laws aren't meant to be consumed like entertainment. They're meant to change how you move through your days, how you respond under pressure, and how you see yourself when no one is there to validate you. Start with this truth. Most of your obstacles are internal before they're external. It's not lack of opportunity that stops most people. It's lack of emotional control. It's not a lack of talent. It's inconsistency. It's not bad luck. It's living an illusion, reacting instead of choosing, and chasing comfort instead of direction. That's why Machiavelli's ideas still hit centuries later. Not because the world is cruel, but because human nature hasn't changed. People still avoid reality. They still leak power through emotion. They still confuse noise with strength. They still want short-term relief instead of long-term results. And if you're honest, you've done some of these things too. But here's the difference now. Awareness gives you a choice. Every single day, you're training yourself, whether you realize it or not. You're training how you respond to discomfort. You're training how long you can stay focused. You're training how much pressure you can handle before you retreat. And that training compounds. When you control your emotions instead of reacting, you build trust with yourself. When you face reality instead of avoiding it, you gain clarity. When you move strategically instead of impulsively, you conserve energy. When you adapt instead of resisting change, you stay alive in the game. When you manage your image with intention, your presence starts working for you. When you protect your strength instead of exposing it everywhere, you maintain leverage. And when you commit to long-term thinking, you stop sabotaging your future for momentary comfort. None of this happens overnight. That's the part most people don't want to hear. Becoming unstoppable isn't a dramatic transformation. It's subtle, quiet, almost invisible at first. It shows up as fewer reactions, longer pauses, better decisions, stronger boundaries, more patience. And then one day, you realize something has shifted. You don't feel the need to explain yourself as much. You're less reactive to disrespect. You're not chasing validation the way you used to. You're calmer under pressure, more deliberate with your time, more selective with your energy. That's power taking root. Not the kind that seeks attention, but the kind that lasts. Understand this. People don't rise because life becomes easy. They rise because they become harder to shake. They become reliable to themselves. They stop abandoning their standards when emotions run high, and that reliability creates momentum. Momentum doesn't come from motivation. Motivation fades. Momentum comes from identity, from seeing yourself as someone who follows through, someone who stays steady, someone who doesn't panic when things get uncomfortable. This is why emotional discipline is the foundation of everything else. If you can't control your inner state, you'll always be reacting to external events. But once you master that inner terrain, the outside world loses its grip on you. You stop being pulled in every direction. You stop chasing every distraction. You stop mistaking movement for progress. Instead, you move with intention. Let me ask you something important. If someone watched how you handled stress, pressure, and uncertainty for the next 30 days, what would they learn about you? Would they see someone reactive or composed? Someone consistent or impulsive? Someone grounded or easily shaken? Because whether you like it or not, that's the version of you you're reinforcing. And here's the part that matters most. No one is coming to save you from that pattern. No one is going to step in and force you to become disciplined, strategic, or emotionally strong. That choice is private, and it's daily. Machiavelli didn't believe in luck as a strategy. He believed in preparation, in positioning, in understanding human nature, and mastering your own first. That's why these laws aren't about dominating others. They're about self-mastery, about becoming someone who doesn't collapse under pressure, someone who doesn't need constant reassurance, someone who can wait, observe, decide. And once you become that person, the world starts responding differently. not because you demanded it, but because you earned it. Opportunities show up differently. People treat you differently. Challenges don't feel as overwhelming, not because life changed, but because you did. So, don't rush this. Don't try to apply everything at once. Pick one law, one behavior, one habit. Start there. Control your reactions. Face one uncomfortable truth. Think before you act. Adapt instead of resisting. Carry yourself with intention. Protect your strength. Commit to the long game. That's how real change happens. Quietly, relentlessly, without applause. And if you stay with it, if you stop quitting on yourself when things get uncomfortable, you'll look back one day and realize something powerful. You didn't become unstoppable all at once. You became unstoppable because you stopped betraying yourself. There is one final truth you need to understand if you want these laws to do more than just sound good. Knowledge alone changes nothing. You can listen to this entire video. You can agree with every idea. You can even feel inspired, focused, and ready right now, and still end up exactly where you started. Because the real divide between people who rise and people who stay stuck is not intelligence, talent, or access. It's what happens after the motivation fades. It's how you act when no one is watching, when the excitement wears off, when life pushes back and old habits start calling you home. That's where everything is decided. Growth does not feel heroic in the beginning. It feels quiet, uncomfortable, and often lonely. When you stop reacting emotionally, people may not recognize you anymore. When you stop explaining yourself, some will feel uneasy around you. When you stop chasing approval, you may feel invisible for a while. That silence can feel dangerous if you're not prepared for it. Most people are addicted to feedback. They want reassurance that they're doing the right thing. They want signs, validation, encouragement. And when those things disappear, they assume something is wrong. But in reality, that silence is often a sign that something is finally working. Power does not announce itself when it's forming. It moves quietly, beneath the surface. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake that quiet for stagnation and return to old behaviors just to feel something again. That's how people sabotage themselves. Not because they don't know better, but because they can't tolerate the stillness that comes with real change. If you want to be unstoppable, you must learn to respect the quiet phase. This is where long-term thinking stops being optional and becomes essential. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you are placing a brick. Every time you pause instead of reacting, another brick. Every time you face an uncomfortable truth instead of escaping it, another brick. At first, it doesn't look like much. There's no applause, no dramatic transformation, no visible reward, just repetition. And that's exactly why most people quit. They want proof before the foundation is built. They want results before the process has time to work. They want reassurance before commitment. But the people who actually change understand something different. Consistency always looks unimpressive before it becomes undeniable. One day, without warning, the structure stands tall enough that no one can ignore it. People will say you changed suddenly. They'll call it luck. They'll ask what happened. They won't see the mornings you didn't feel like showing up. They won't see the reactions you swallowed. They won't see the comfort you sacrificed. But you'll know, and that's all that matters. Understand this clearly. Being unstoppable does not mean nothing affects you. It means nothing controls you. You still feel pressure. You still experience doubt. You still have moments where quitting seems tempting. The difference is simple, but not easy. You don't let those moments decide for you. You don't give the steering wheel to your emotions. You don't abandon your standards when things get uncomfortable. You don't trade your future for temporary relief. That is self-mastery, and self-mastery compounds faster than anything else in life. Once you trust yourself to stay steady, you stop constantly seeking advice. Once you trust your discipline, uncertainty stops feeling threatening. Once you trust your ability to endure discomfort, urgency loses its grip on you. You become calm under pressure, not because you don't care, but because you've learned how to care without losing control. This is why so many people remain reactive. They've never learned how to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to escape it. They distract themselves. They rationalize. They numb. But discomfort is not the enemy. It's a signal. It tells you where growth is required. It shows you where discipline is missing. It exposes the gap between who you are and who you want to become. If you can sit with that discomfort, observe it without acting impulsively, you gain leverage over your own life. And no external power is stronger than that. This is where identity begins to shift. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs motivation. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs perfect conditions. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs permission. You become someone who acts because it's aligned, not because it feels good. And alignment outlasts motivation every time. Do not wait for fear to disappear. Do not wait to feel ready. Do not wait for confidence to arrive. Fear does not leave before progress. It leaves after. Confidence is built after action, not before it. Start where you are, with what you have, with the version of yourself you see today. Control one reaction today. Face one truth you've been avoiding. Make one strategic decision instead of an emotional one. Hold one boundary even if it feels uncomfortable. Choose the long-term path one more time than you choose comfort. Then do it again tomorrow. That's how identity is rewritten. Not through dramatic declarations, but through repeated proof. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, even a small one, your self-respect grows. And self-respect changes how you move through the world. You stop negotiating with yourself. You stop making excuses sound reasonable. You stop lowering standards just to avoid discomfort. And slowly, something powerful happens. You become reliable to yourself. When that happens, panic fades, urgency fades, neediness fades. You no longer rush decisions because you trust your ability to endure. You no longer cling to people or outcomes because you're grounded in your own direction. That's when external chaos loses its power over you. Being unstoppable is not about dominating others. It's about no longer being dominated by your impulses. It's about staying grounded when emotions rise. It's about thinking in years instead of moments. It's about becoming someone whose presence is calm, deliberate, and unshakable. Not loud, not aggressive, not desperate, just solid. So, before you leave this video, anchor the decision, not as motivation, not as a quote, but as a commitment. Write this in the comments one last time. I am in control of my emotions, and nothing can stop my rise. Say it knowing the work continues after the video ends. Say it knowing no one is coming to rescue you. Say it knowing you are choosing discipline over excuses, because this is not the end of your rise. This is the moment you stop standing in your own way. Before you close this video, slow down for a moment. Not to replay the ideas, not to analyze them, but to notice what's happening inside you right now. Because this is the moment where most people quietly step away unchanged. They'll say the message was powerful. They'll say it made sense. They'll say they'll remember it. And then life pulls them back into the same habits, the same reactions, the same comfort zones that kept them stuck in the first place. Not because they lack potential, but because real change asks for something most people avoid: consistency without reward. If you're still here listening to the final words, there's a chance you already feel that tension, the pull between who you've been and who you know you could become. That tension isn't a problem. It's a signal. This path was never meant to feel easy or dramatic. It was meant to feel quiet, demanding, and deeply personal. When you stop reacting emotionally, some people will feel unsettled around you. When you stop explaining yourself, you may notice fewer responses, fewer reactions, fewer signs that you're being seen. When you stop chasing validation, there will be moments where it feels like you've disappeared from the noise. That's not failure. That's separation. Most people live addicted to feedback. They need reassurance to keep going. They need applause to feel real. And when those things disappear, they panic and return to familiar patterns just to feel something again. But the people who truly rise learn to respect the quiet phase. Power doesn't announce itself when it's forming. It doesn't rush. It doesn't demand attention. It builds beneath the surface, brick by brick, choice by choice, long before anyone notices. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, something unseen is reinforced. Every time you pause instead of reacting, your self-control strengthens. Every time you face an uncomfortable truth instead of avoiding it, your clarity sharpens. At first, nothing looks different. That's why most people quit. They want proof before the foundation is built. They want results before patience has time to work. They want certainty before commitment. But those who endure understand something most never learn. Real progress looks boring before it looks powerful. One day, people will say you changed suddenly. They'll say you became confident overnight. They'll ask what happened. They won't see the restraint, the silence, the days you chose long-term direction over short-term relief. But you will, and that quiet certainty becomes your anchor. Being unstoppable doesn't mean nothing affects you. It means nothing controls you. You still feel pressure. You still feel doubt. You still have moments where giving up feels tempting. The difference is this: you don't let those moments decide your future. You don't give your emotions the authority to steer your life. You don't abandon your standards when things become uncomfortable. You don't trade who you're becoming for who you've been. That is self-mastery. And once you taste it, chaos loses its grip on you. You stop rushing decisions because you trust yourself to endure uncertainty. You stop clinging to people or outcomes because your sense of direction comes from within. You stop panicking when progress feels slow because you understand the timeline you're playing on. This is why so many people stay reactive. They've never learned how to sit with discomfort without escaping it. They numb it. They distract themselves. They rationalize it away. But discomfort is where strength is shaped. If you can sit with it without acting impulsively, you gain leverage over your own life. And no external force is more powerful than someone who cannot be emotionally hijacked. So don't wait to feel ready. Don't wait for confidence to appear. Don't wait for fear to disappear. Fear leaves after you move forward, not before. Start where you are, with the habits you have, with the discipline you can hold today. Control one reaction, hold one boundary, make one decision with the future in mind instead of the moment. Then repeat. That's how identity changes. Not through declarations, but through evidence. Each time you keep a promise to yourself, your self-respect grows. And self-respect changes how you walk into rooms, how you handle pressure, how seriously the world takes you. You become reliable, to yourself first. And once that happens, everything else begins to shift. Carry this with you after the video ends, not as motivation, but as a standard. A quiet rule you live by when no one is watching. The path is clear now. What you do next will define everything that follows.